I've got a high quality, cheap, easy to grow, simple feed for your livestock, for wildlife, and even for you and me. I'm Rob from Dowdle Family Farms, and over the last couple years I've been on this journey to grow more of our livestock feeds on our farm. We do this with cattle, and it's fairly easy to do with ruminants because they process grasses fairly easily. For pigs, however, because they're monogastrics, they do not process grasses and pastures as well as our cows do. In the fall of the year, our pigs eat a lot of beech nuts, hickory nuts, and especially acorns. They also get a lot of wild grapes that fall from the trees over here behind me as well. In fact, we virtually eliminate many of our feed costs that time of the year. The problem that we run into, however, is that growing high-quality, nutritious feeds for pigs is very difficult over the rest of the year. If you look up a lot of the literature on grazing pigs on pasture, one of the best forages they talk about is growing alfalfa and also clovers. The problem that we run into is alfalfa does not grow very well in my area. I've tried it, and I know a few other much more competent producers than me who have tried growing alfalfa, and they don't get a very good stand of it growing. The other thing that we can grow, though, is white clover, and white clover performs really well, and it produces a good bit of biomass per acre. The problem, though, is that if it's fall seeded, which is typically best, we tend to have really dry falls. So if we can't plant it in the fall, then we can plant it in January and February through a process called frost seeding. Now, we have had some good success with frost seeding in our permanently pastures. The thing is that if the seed comes up in some spots and not others, it's okay. However, if we plant it on a bare pasture, we don't always get great germination, and we have some bare spots, and so it doesn't always perform as well. One other crop that we can grow really well, however, is Dwarf Essex Rape. This is where Dwarf Essex Rape has been a very prominent feature on our farm for feeding our pastured pigs. Dwarf Essex Rape is a brassica much like collards, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, mustards, turnips, and many others, and it produces a high quality feed. However, it can have some of its problems as well. The most notable problem you'll hear talked about with Dwarf Essex Rape is with sunburned pigs, especially if they're out in an open pasture with no shade and they're light-skinned pigs. We haven't had an issue with that. However, just know that it can be a problem, and you might want to be careful about that. One of the things that I really like about Dwarf Essex Rape is the seed is readily available from just about any seed store. Our local farm supply store sells it. It's used for hunters who planting it for deer. It's used for livestock producers. And even though there are some more productive varieties, it is easy to get and it's very cheap. The seed costs less than $1 a pound when we buy it in a 50-pound bag. And so we can plant this whole 5-acre field behind me for less than $5 or $10. It is just amazing how well and how cheap that seed is. Dwarf Essex Rape is a high protein feed ranging from 17 to about 22% crude protein, so it's a really high protein type feed. That means it's great for stocker cattle, and it's also great for pigs as well. For stocker cattle, they're weanlings that need a little bit more nutrition. They need a little bit more protein to put on that muscle mass, and so the Dwarf Essex Rape works very, very well for them. However, know that if you're going to feed your stocker cattle with Dwarf Essex Rape, it has a low lignin content and a low cellulose content, so that means that they need to have some hay or some other feed that they can help balance their rumens. However, that low lignin content and low cellulose content is what makes it a nutritional powerhouse for monogastrics like pigs and humans too. And so what happens is the total digestible nutrients, or TDN, tend to range in the 70 range, which is fairly high. So it has high levels of energy, and it also has high levels of protein and low levels of cellulose and lignin that pig stomachs just are not equipped to handle. The highly nutritious forage that you get out of Dwarf Essex Rape means that it's great for deer. We often see turkeys in our Dwarf Essex Rape fields. Many times throughout the summer, they're actually eating the bugs off of the forage, not actually the Dwarf Essex Rape itself. But we find that a lot of deer hunters, turkey hunters, as well as livestock producers like Dwarf Essex Rape. So because wildlife enthusiasts and livestock producers both like Dwarf Essex Rape, it means that seed producers produce a lot of it and it reduces the seed cost. It also means that it's easy to find that seed somewhere else. Now, do know that you can find more productive types of brassicas out there. Most of the studies that I've read say that Dwarf Essex Rape can produce anywhere from 800 pounds to almost 8,000 pounds of dry matter per acre. The higher ranges of that 8,000 pounds of dry matter per acre, though, is likely going to be from multiple grazings, and that'll be if you're putting ruminants on it. In my experience, you don't get more than 2 grazings off of Dwarf Essex Rape with pigs because they'll rip it up unless you just graze them really quickly across a field of that brassica. One of the things that I love about Dwarf Essex Rape is we can plant it just about year-round as long as we have good soil moisture. If we get a hurricane coming through or some thunder showers in August or September, we can plant it then and have a great fall and winter crop. We can also plant it throughout our winter. Our winters rarely get very cold, and so our soil temperatures tend to remain in the 41-degree range or so that's required for Dwarf Essex Rape to germinate. We can also plant it in the spring for a summer grazing crop. The only thing that you need to be careful about, though, is if you plant it in the fall, it's not going to be good all the way through the next fall. You're only going to get about 120 to 180 days worth of grazing out of that crop if you're going to be grazing it with cattle. If you're grazing it for pigs, you can probably expect closer to 90 to 120 days, in my experience anyway, grazing it. Because Dwarf Essex Rape is so cheap, I put it in a lot of our different seed mixes. So when I'm planting buckwheat for a quick turnaround crop, or when I'm planting something else, I often throw the Dwarf Essex Rape seed in there because it is so cheap. It's only $1 per acre or so to add to a mix. Because it's so cheap, it's okay for me to add it, and if I'm out the dollar, I'm out the dollar if the seed does absolutely nothing. Usually, though, the seed will produce pretty well in some areas, so if I miss seeding or if I don't get a good seed mixture in there, I find that the Dwarf Essex Rape comes in through quite well. The thing about Dwarf Essex Rape being so available and so cheap is you can often add it to another seed mix without a whole lot of cost. I planted this buckwheat field about 4 weeks ago, and I added the Dwarf Essex Rape just because I wasn't sure how well the buckwheat would perform by itself. In some areas the buckwheat has performed really well, in other areas the Dwarf Essex Rape has performed better. But what I'm finding is that mix in that crop, the pigs will eat both the buckwheat and they'll eat the Dwarf Essex Rape, and it provides a really good nutritious feed for them. You've probably heard the saying, you are what you eat. Well, pigs are what they eat, and we are what pigs eat. So if we want to eat healthier food, if we can find producers who are growing more feeds like Dwarf Essex Rape for their pigs, it's a world of a lot better. You've probably heard of the health benefits of kale, collards, turnips, mustards, and many of those other brassica greens. Dwarf Essex Rape is one of those highly nutritious brassicas that provides a world of a lot of health benefits for whoever and whatever eats it. I hope that you'll consider growing some Dwarf Essex Rape for your livestock. And even if you don't have any livestock, grow some for yourself and your family, or even try buying some pork from someone who tries growing cover crops just like this for the livestock. Take care. Have a great day.